On Christmas Eve, 1971, lightning struck Lanza Flight 508, disintegrating the plane at 10,000 feet. 91 people died, but one did not. A 17-year-old girl, strapped to her seat, fell for 2 miles and lived. But the fall wasn't the deadliest part of this tragedy. The most horrifying secret of Flight 508 was discovered much later on the jungle floor.
It was a choice born from circumstance. Christmas Eve, 1971. After attending her high school graduation ceremony in Lima, 17-year-old Julianne Kopka and her mother needed a flight to Pucallpa to reunite with her father for the holidays. Every flight was booked solid, except one, a flight on a small, notorious Peruvian airline called LANSA. LANSA had a terrifying reputation. Just 16 months earlier, one of their planes had crashed on takeoff, killing 99 people, including 49 American students. Julianne's father, a renowned zoologist, had explicitly warned them, please fly with anyone else. But it was LANSA or Miss Christmas together. They took the chance. 40 minutes into the flight, the plane flew directly into a colossal black thunderstorm. Extreme turbulence hit. Christmas presents, cakes, and luggage rained down from the overheads. Then a blinding flash of lightning struck the right wing, setting it ablaze. Julianne's mother looked at her and said calmly, "That is the end. It's all over." The roar of the engines was instantly replaced by the deafening whisper of the wind as the plane came apart around them.
How do you survive a fall from 10,000 feet? The laws of physics say you don't. But Julianne wasn't just falling. She was still strapped into her 3-seat bench, her dead mother and another passenger on either side of her. This row of seats became a crude aerodynamic device. It began to spin like a maple seed, a makeshift helicopter rotor that dramatically slowed her descent. The violent updraft from the very storm that destroyed the plane now, ironically, helped to cushion her fall. As she plummeted, she looked down and saw the endless green canopy of the Amazon rushing towards her, a sea of what she later described as heads of broccoli. Then, a final, violent impact. Everything went black. She awoke the next morning, not to the sound of engines or screams, but to the deafening, unnatural silence of the jungle floor. She was alive, but the fall was just the first few seconds of her ordeal. She had landed in a place just as dangerous as the sky.
When Julianne finally regained full consciousness, she took stock of her injuries. A broken collarbone, a concussion that left her dizzy and disoriented, a torn ligament in her knee, deep gashes on her arm and leg, and her right eye was swollen completely shut. The capillaries burst from the extreme pressure change of the fall. But the most terrifying injury was her profound solitude. She screamed for her mother again and again, but only the jungle answered. The canopy above was a suffocating green blanket, so thick that no rescue plane could ever spot her from the air. She was a ghost in a world of hidden predators, jaguars with bone-crushing jaws, venomous pit vipers camouflaged in the leaf litter, and black caimans lurking in the murky water. The hope of rescue quickly faded to zero. Despair began to set in. But then a memory cut through the fog of pain. A simple rule her father, the biologist, had taught her during their years living at a research station deep in this very jungle. If you're lost, find water. Follow it downstream. It will always lead to a larger river and to civilization. It was a tiny sliver of a plan, but it created a new, urgent problem. The only water she could find was a tiny, almost invisible creek, leading deeper into the unknown.
For days, she followed the water. She had lost one of her sandals in the fall, and her glasses were gone, leaving the world a blur. Her only protection against the wilderness was a torn, sleeveless mini dress. Her only food, a small bag of candy she'd found among the wreckage. The jungle was a relentless enemy. The humidity was suffocating. The nights were a sleepless torment of insect bites that left her skin raw and swollen. On the 4th day of her trek, she stumbled upon a row of 3 seats half buried in the mud. The passengers were still strapped in, driven into the ground head first by the force of the impact. The final, flickering hope of finding other survivors was brutally extinguished. This place wasn't just a jungle, it was a graveyard, and she was the only one walking through it. But her unique childhood had given her an edge. She knew not to eat the tempting poisonous berries. She knew to avoid the brightly colored poison dart frogs she saw. She was, in a way, prepared. But that preparation was about to be tested in the most gruesome way imaginable.
The deep gash on her upper arm was now a critical threat. It was badly infected, hot to the touch, and radiating pain. As she looked closer, she saw something moving inside the wound. A botfly had laid its eggs in the open flesh. Now dozens of maggots were burrowing into her arm, eating her alive from the inside. She knew with chilling certainty that if the infection spread, she would die a slow, agonizing death from sepsis. On the 9th day of her ordeal, delirious and weakened by hunger, she stumbled upon an impossible sight in the middle of nowhere, a small, empty hut and a boat moored by the riverbank. Inside the hut, she found a can of gasoline, and another memory of her father surfaced, watching him use gasoline to clean a maggot infestation from the family dog. She now faced a horrific choice: let the infection consume her, or inflict a new, unimaginable pain on herself in a desperate bid to survive.
She made her choice. Using a leaf, she siphoned a small amount of gasoline from the can. With a shaking hand, she poured the fuel directly into her open, infected wound. The pain was blinding, a white-hot agony that eclipsed everything else. But it worked. One by one, she began to pull the writhing maggots from her arm. She counted 35 of them before she was done. Utterly spent, she collapsed in the hut, waiting for what she thought was the end. Hours later, she heard voices. 3 lumberjacks had returned to their camp. They froze, terrified. They thought this blonde, ghost-like girl covered in mud and blood was a Yemanya, a mythical water spirit from local folklore. But she spoke to them in Spanish, explaining what had happened. Her 11-day ordeal was over, or so she thought. The most devastating discovery of all was yet to come.
Her survival was hailed as a miracle, but the truth is, it wasn't a miracle. It was a brutal lesson in the difference between luck and knowledge. As search parties, guided by Julian, finally reached the main crash site, they uncovered the horrifying secret from the jungle floor. Her mother and at least 13 other passengers had survived the initial fall. They all perished in the days that followed. They didn't have the knowledge to survive the jungle. Julian did. And that reveals the final brutal truth of this story. The fall from the sky was a game of chance, a deadly lottery that a few people managed to win. But the jungle that followed, that was a test of knowledge, a test that only a person with Julian's unique skills could pass.